And as the Bears go to take the court tomorrow, they will do so with one of their most dangerous weapons on the bench in sweats once again. Scott Drew announced yesterday before the team left for Memphis that Langston Love will not be a part of the action this weekend and might not be for the whole tournament. If at this point in the season, he did just rule him out for this weekend. And that is a big blow to Baylor. I think a lot of us were sitting here thinking, okay, we would have liked him to play in the Big 12 tournament, but don't mind getting the rest. We need him. We need him next week, which next week is here, and Baylor's going to have to go without again. It's really unfortunate for the team and for the player. You remember he played just about 5 minutes against Santa Barbara last year and had the injury as well. And so this is year 3 that he's been on campus. The poor guy just hasn't really been able to play a tournament game yet. And it's obviously a big blow to the team. This is a guy we're talking about can't undersell this enough, or can't undersell it, in that he was going to be the 6th man of the year in the Big 12. Like, we're not just talking, a good bench piece. We're talking about one of the best bench pieces in the country in Langston Love, a guy who would start for most teams in the nation and absolutely has the talent to start for Baylor, but has excelled in that role as your scorer off the bench, which every national championship team needs. Pretty much every Final Four team needs it too. I don't think Final Four teams need to necessarily go 10 deep, but you need to have punch off the bench. I think back to 2021, and I think it was the Wisconsin game. Matthew Meyer gives you 20 points off the bench. Like, that's a huge lift. He made some big plays in that Villanova game. That's a big, big lift for a team that had a great starting 5. You still needed someone like Matthew Meyer to come off the bench and provide that punch. I'm thinking back to Duke in 2015. Grayson Allen has the great championship game where he, scores 8 or 10 points, but gets them back in that game with energy and production off the bench. And right now, that's a tough ask for the rest of this bench. I'm looking at Caleb Lohner as a guy who, had another coming out party in the Big 12 tournament this year, had his best minutes of the season in the last couple of weeks of the season last year. So this I'm hoping he is a PTPer and he's going to step up big for this team, but to not have such a talented shooter as well as penetrator coming off the bench in Langston Love, that's big. That's big because that's a lot to ask for someone like Miro Little, who, again, I think has done his job well and admirably. But it's just tough for a freshman coming in here to just be like, hey, can you give me 8 or 10 off the bench in the NCAA tournament? That's not an easy thing to do. And it can make or break runs in this tournament to have someone off the bench who can do that, especially if you have a game like you had against Iowa State where, Jacoby, Jalen Bridges, Jaden Nunn, and then in the first half, Ray J. Dennis, they can't shoot the ball. Now, I'm hoping that's not happening again. I doubt it will happen again, that all 3 or all 4 of them are off the mark. But when you're missing shots early, it can damage a confidence to a team like Baylor. And to not have that guy you can bring off the bench that says, hey, get our head right. Put the ball in the basket a few times and get our offense back to where it needs to be. That is a huge miss. A huge miss. And obviously, can't blame the player, can't blame the coach. But it is weird that now 2 of the last 3 seasons, we've seen a day-to-day injuries. I'm thinking of LJ Cryer in 2022 and Langston Love this year. Day-to-day injuries that we heard for months turn into, well, now they're not playing in the biggest games of the year, because that's concerning. And I hope I'm wrong about this, but once you rule a guy out of the first weekend of the tournament, if you even make it to the second weekend, that's tough to just bring him back, which is odd because he played over 20 minutes against Tech 2 weeks ago. And that's why we were all kind of scratching our heads as to why he wasn't available in the Big 12 tournament. You're thinking, okay, you get the rest. And now here we go. He's out this weekend too. And one thing you also got to keep in mind here is what Bill Self said about Kevin McCullough. Said, yeah, he came back and played some games, but he hadn't practiced in 6 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if Langston Love hasn't practiced since that first Tech game or that second BYU game, I guess, when he re-aggravated that injury. that's what happens with these guys. You stay on the bike, you stay in shape, but they're not out there practicing. They're just keeping their body rested for the game. And so all that to say, if he's out this week and Baylor makes it to next weekend, I, I'm not betting my money that Langston Love's available to play because, I mean, Scott Drew's a Hall of Fame coach. He knows this. These games matter just as much. There is no next weekend if not this weekend. So a crushing blow for Baylor, honestly, which a team that has become a hot pick around the country amongst people playing the brackets to go deep in this tournament. I have them going deep in this tournament. I truly believe they can still make a nice run, but I think this lowers your ceiling a little bit. I really do.